Alright, so this is not a bad game list. These are the games I love, but they absolutely test your patience. The kind of games where you sit up straight, go quiet, and suddenly you are bargaining with your controller like it can hear you. If you want challenge, stress, and that sweet victory feeling after way too many fails, these are the ones. Cuphead is the definition of I can do this, turning into why is this happening to me in 5 minutes. The bosses are the main event, and they are brutal because every phase changes the rules on you. You start learning a pattern, then boom, the screen fills with new attacks, new timings, and something tiny you did not see clips you. The run and gun levels are no joke either, especially when you are trying to keep your health for the end. It feels fair, which is the problem, because every death is basically your fault. You will replay the same fight so many times that the music gets stuck in your head, and somehow you still come back for more. Hollow Knight is a beautiful game that does not care about your feelings. The combat is tight, but the bosses demand real focus, and the game loves to punish panic dodges. What makes people cry here is the long run back after you die, especially early on when you do not have many movement upgrades. You feel the pressure because you are carrying your currency. You mess up once, and suddenly you are doing this stressful recovery mission. Then you hit the late game and optional challenges, and it becomes a whole different level of difficulty. Some fights feel like endurance tests where you have to stay perfect for way longer than you want to. When you finally win, though, it feels like you earned it with your soul. Celeste is pure precision platforming, and it is the kind that makes you laugh at first, then slowly breaks you down in a very respectful way. You die constantly, but the respawns are instant, so the game basically dares you to try again immediately. Every room is like a tiny puzzle where your inputs have to be clean, and later chapters start stacking mechanics until it feels like your brain is juggling. The fact the game tracks your deaths is funny, but also a little rude, because it's like the game is keeping receipts. The cry energy comes from how close you get so many times. You can see the finish, you almost touch it, then you miss one dash and explode again. Dark Souls Remastered is the classic learn by suffering experience, and it still hits hard on Switch. The game is not fast, but it is unforgiving. Stamina management is everything, and if you get greedy, you get punished immediately. Enemies that seem basic at first can destroy you if you stop respecting them. Bosses are memorable, but the real pain is the world itself, because checkpoints can feel far apart, and the runbacks can be draining. You are always managing risk, like, do I spend my souls now or push forward? Then you get clipped by something dumb, and you feel the sadness settle in. The upside is, the game teaches you discipline, and when you start winning, you feel like a different person. Super Meat Boy is one of those games where the level starts and your hands are already sweating. The controls are super responsive, but the stages are built like tiny death traps that demand near-perfect timing. You're flying through saw blades, spikes, lasers, and collapsing platforms, and it all happens fast. The game wants you to chain attempts until you finally nail the run, but the emotional damage comes from how brutal the later worlds get. You can be doing great, then you miss a wall jump by 1 pixel and it's over. What I love is the replay at the end where it shows all your failed runs at once, like a sad little army of you losing. It is hilarious and painful at the same time. Dead Cells is tough because it mixes fast combat with the pressure of permadeath. You can be having the run of your life, finally getting the perfect weapon combo, feeling unstoppable, then one bad mistake and it all collapses. Enemies hit hard, traps are everywhere, and the game loves to punish sloppy movement. What makes it really cry-worthy is that the game keeps getting harder in a smart way. You start learning routes and builds, then higher difficulty levels add more chaos and require cleaner decision-making. You also have to balance speed versus safety, because if you take too long, you get punished. It is the kind of game where your brain is always on, and when you die, you just stare at the screen like, I really did that. Enter the Gungeon is a bullet hell party where the jokes are funny and the difficulty is not. The screen can turn into a mess of projectiles so fast that it feels impossible, especially when you're still learning enemy tells. The dodge roll is your best friend, but it can also get you killed if you roll into something stupid. Runs are unpredictable, so sometimes you get amazing gear and still lose because the game throws a nasty room at you. Boss fights are the real stress test because they demand pattern recognition and calm nerves. Once you start getting deep into the Gungeon, your hands will be moving faster than your brain. The cry moment is when you lose a great run because you got clipped by one tiny bullet you did not even notice. Isaac is hard in a different way. It is not just reaction time, it is also dealing with randomness and surviving bad luck. Some runs make you feel powerful, but others give you weak items, terrible rooms, and bosses that feel unfair when your build is trash. The game is full of enemies that explode, shoot weird patterns, or flood the screen with chaos, and it is easy to get overwhelmed. What really hurts is when you are on a great run, and you take one bad hit that spirals into another hit, and suddenly you are limping through the last floors. It is a game where you can lose progress in seconds, and the only response is to hit restart and pretend you are fine. Salt and Sanctuary is basically a 2D Souls game that wants you to suffer in small hallways. The combat is heavy, enemies hit hard, and bosses can feel like brick walls if your build is not clicking. The exploration is dangerous because you can fall into areas you are not ready for, then you are stuck trying to crawl back out while everything murders you. The game also has that classic vibe of losing resources on death, so you are constantly stressed about pushing forward versus playing safe. It can feel brutal because the screen is smaller than a 3D Souls game, so attacks can feel sudden and cramped. When you finally beat a boss that has been bullying you, it feels amazing, but you definitely earn it. Metroid Dread is tense because it mixes tough boss fights with those high-pressure chase sequences. The EMMY sections are stressful in the best way because you are constantly moving, hiding, and trying to find the right path while the game is basically hunting you. If you get caught, you have a tiny reaction window to escape, and most of the time you just get deleted. Then you hit the bosses, and they are surprisingly demanding. They hit hard, patterns change, and you have to learn when to dodge and when to counter. The game expects you to play smart, and it does not let you brute force your way through. It feels like a real skill check, and it absolutely makes people rage in silence. So yeah, if you have ever wanted a Switch game that can humble you, these 10 will do the job. And look, I am not saying you will cry, but I am also not saying you will not. Drop a comment with the hardest Switch game you have ever beaten, and tell me which one broke you the most. And if you want more lists like this, you already know what to do, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.